So when the doctor had said, you're having a panic attack, and I looked at him like, why would I have a panic attack? Because I feel like I have a pretty benign life, right? I go to work, I'm married, kids, whatever. But when I look back and at all the expectations I had on myself and trying to make everyone happy and do everything for everyone, and I obviously was putting myself last, now it makes sense. Have I had a panic attack since? Yeah, but I'm also able at this point to talk myself out of it, and it's nothing like it first was.
Hey there, welcome back to Good for the Hive, the podcast where I get to sit down with some inspiring guests to share their life lessons and take a look at the question, what is a good life? Today's guest, Sarah Jayne, is from the Fast Lane with Sarah Jayne podcast. We talk all about panic attacks, no-nonsense therapy, and how to start a podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please do give it a like and share. And if you're new around here, do subscribe. All the new likes and shares help us to continue to grow and attract inspiring guests just like Sarah Jayne. Let's jump into the episode. Sarah Jayne, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
No problem at all. I've got lots of questions for you tonight, and we know we're pushed for time, so we'll start where we always start, and I will ask you, what is a good life to you?
A good life to me is having freedom of the expectations and thoughts of others. So I think that once a person can live a life on their own terms and not care as much about the outside world, then you're living a good life.
Fantastic. And that sounds like, have you always lived your life that way, or was there a realization where the thoughts and worries and fears and everything else of everyone else shouldn't really concern you as much as it did?
I used to be completely the opposite of what I am now. So I was always concerned what people thought. I was always more concerned about people's emotions than my own. And that all changed when I had a panic attack. And then I myself had to do some therapy, and I kind of restructured my way of thinking. And it was definitely for the better. And due to that, I have definitely raised my kids to think the same way. So before they went to school, I remember my oldest son, before he went to school for the first time, I told him, now remember, you like the Minnesota Vikings. Not everyone's going to like the Minnesota Vikings. So people are going to say they're stupid, they're bad. I would give them all these scenarios, and I'd say, and you can say, that's fine. That's your opinion. I said, because just because it's someone else's opinion doesn't mean it have to be yours. And I can remember that exact conversation. And I've had that conversation with each of my kids, because we have to remember everyone has a different opinion, and we can respect that, but we can't let their opinion matter to us more than what we think or feel ourselves.
Particularly in school, that can be tricky, because it is a time where you don't necessarily know who you are. Maybe the influences of other people have already got to you, and you're still finding yourself as such. Do you think this advice has made school easier or slightly more prickly for people who take this approach?
For my children, I know it's been easier. And it's funny because sometimes my husband will say something, like he will have a different opinion on something than one of my sons, and I will hear them say, okay, well, that's your opinion. And I just smile, because they're not arguing. They don't want to say anything, especially with hair. Like, teenage hair is a big deal. And I know that a lot of parents, and I'm not judging, like, we all need to do what we need to do. A lot of parents will let their children do whatever they want with their hair. We don't love that idea, so we do have a little more rules. And so, like, my son's hair was getting a little longer. My husband's like, that looks ridiculous. And he's like, well, that's your opinion. And then he just lets it, roll off his shoulders. So for us, it has definitely been a blessing. And it's not that we don't care about other people's feelings. And it's not, we're not empathic. It's just that we're not going to let other people's thoughts, feelings, emotions define how our day or our life goes.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've mentioned it already, the panic attack that you had in 2015, I want to say, that seems to have like really curbed your existence, your journey, everything about you. Mm-hmm. Let's start with, for people who have never experienced a panic attack, and had you at this point, was this literally the first time you've ever experienced this?
Yeah. I had never had a panic attack before, and I thought I was dying. And most people that I talk to that have had a panic attack, and I'm not sure if you have, but that is what they think too. Like, this is the end. Because
Mm,
I had woken, and it's been 10 years, and we were just having this conversation recently. I said, it's been a decade. That's a long time. 10 years already. But I had woken up in the middle of the night, and I felt like my arm was wet. And I mean, if a person doesn't have animals, they're really going to roll their eyes. But I thought, did my cat pee? Because it didn't, and I don't normally have a cat who pees on my bed, right? So
mm,
I felt like it was wet, and I didn't feel a cat, and I felt my arm, and it wasn't wet, and I'm like, well, that's weird. And then as I laid there, my heart was racing, and I woke my husband up, and he felt my heart rate, and he's like, whoa, this isn't normal. And so after I had gone to the emergency room and all this or that, because I thought I was having a stroke or something, I had no idea. Uh,
mm,
and I know the symptoms of a stroke, but with everything going on, it's like you do not think rationally, and anything you can possibly think is bad is just magnified. And so when the doctor had said, um, you're having a panic attack, and I looked at him like, why would I have a panic attack? Because I feel like I have a pretty benign life, right? I go to work, I'm married, kids, whatever. But when I look back and at all the expectations I had on myself and trying to make everyone happy and do everything for everyone, and I obviously was putting myself last, now it makes sense. Have I had a panic attack since? Yeah, but I'm also able at this point to talk myself out of it, and it's nothing like it first was. So if a person if a person has never had a panic attack, you think you almost think it's crazy, because
mm,
you just do not understand. But if you've had a panic attack, you really do sympathize with the people, because you're like, oh, it's debilitating. I don't
mm.
Have you experienced a panic attack before?
I've had things going on where, yeah, intensely stressful situations looking back on it, and things have happened. Weirdly enough, it was in the middle of the night as well, and it was more of like a horrific dream that went bad, and like you say, heart beating through your chest. Not sure what's going on. Never experienced it before. Looking back, I can't remember if I thought I was dying. I just didn't know what the hell was going on. But it made much more sense in the existence that I had, because it was a stressful. It was like a cauldron of lots of stress, a lot of emotions, those sort of things. It made perfect sense. Like, why wouldn't you have a panic attack in that sort of situation?
Sure.
Much scarier if it hits you from the side where you've never had it before. You feel like your life is fine and like everything's going well, and then your body just says, "No, it's not. This
Yep.
isn't cool anymore."
Yep.
And do you think this was brought on by, in a sense, your own actions? And like you said you put yourself last in a lot of situations. Do you think the emotions and things were being pushed down? What do you think actually brought it to boiling point and brought it to the surface, as it were?
I think that it was unique to me in the fact of my job is to help people feel well, right? And so I pride myself on helping people. And I purely did not help myself. So I was not exercising at the time. And I had two young children at the time. So, you kind of I, at the time, was pouring all of what I had into everyone else. So into my patients, into my kids, into my husband, into whoever might need me, but definitely not myself. Took zero time for myself. Like, I never would have done anything like a meditation or listening to anything soothing. I don't even think I was really reading many books at the time, because it was just go, 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 go. And my body was like, okay, you have got to slow down. And I like to tell people that and especially moms, because I relate to moms, because that is the arena that I'm in right now. But it's like, you're the foundation. And if the foundation crumbles, everyone's in trouble. So you have to take care of the foundation, right? Or I I wrote a book on how, if you compare your body to a car, a truck, a vehicle of any sort, you take better care of your vehicle, than you do your real body, because we go until we can't, right? So there's so
Mm.
many times people come in and they've had this back pain for 3-4 months, and I'm like, why did you wait this long? Oh, I thought it would go away and I thought it would get better, and it just hasn't. Okay, well, if you had a flat tire, you wouldn't drive around on it, for 3 or 4 months. You'd get it fixed right away. So and if we're going to look at it that way, I had 4 flat tires. I was not taking care of myself, and finally I had to be towed in, and I had to have an overhaul on myself, mentally and physically, in order to get where I am today. And I honestly think I think I'm a better friend. I'm a better spouse. I'm a better parent because of going through that. And it stinks because a lot of people have to have a situation like that to make them realize. And thank God that my situation was a panic attack, because I've read plenty of books and I've seen plenty of things where people go through a severe illness or a death in the family or a major motor vehicle accident, something like that. I mean, if I needed a panic attack to wake up, I feel blessed that that was my vehicle to get there.
And like you say, I was just about to say, looking back on it, it's led you to writing a book, it's led you to having a podcast, it's led you to so many other positive ways of helping others. Had it not happened, you could have trundled on for another 5-10 years, and you would have missed all the positives and benefits of these things. So you're a chiropractor by trade.
Yes.
What does a chiropractor do? I feel like it's different in the States to what we have here, because we have osteopaths, we have physios, we have people who manipulate the spine with their hands and these things. What does a chiropractor, how do you embody it? Because I think some of the things I've seen that you talk about in other podcasts, it seems like it's more than just manipulation of the spine, way more, that you're qualified to talk about.
So that is a that is what we are trained to do, is spinal manipulation. So we remove the nerve interference to make sure everything is moving properly. So a lot a lot can be said about the structure of your body and the function of your body. So if things aren't working right and if they're not aligned right, then things are going to wear poorly or differently. And I suppose it depends where you are, like what kind of schooling and everything that you've had, but that is what we mainly do. I in my clinic also do supplements. We have a weight loss clinic. We do different muscle work. We do stuff like that as well. So we're able to kind of look at the person as a whole. We do detox foot baths. So we can do a little more than just the spinal manipulation, but that is like the most hands-on thing, is the spinal manipulation. We do a lot of
Mm.
muscle work in our office because and I don't know how familiar your listeners are with chiropractic, but sometimes people have gone to a chiropractor once and it's been rough, and let's say they've had their neck adjusted and they don't like hearing the pop or the crack and it was uncomfortable. There's different ways to be adjusted. So I don't want people to be concerned like that's the only way. There's definitely much more conservative techniques that a person can do. So you don't have to hear the crack. You don't have to be sore afterwards. So we in our office have a much more gentle approach.
Mm. And with the, you said you went into stages of therapy after the panic attack that sort of sorted you out and got you to where you are today. What was the right path for you in that time? And did you try, you mentioned meditation as well, did you try different therapy courses and one clicked, or did you just find the right thing straight away to give you what you needed, to explain what you were going through, to get you through in that part of your life?
So I have been to 3 different people for therapy. So one was when I was in high school, and I had a lot of apparent I don't know. I don't know. I can't pinpoint one thing, but I had a lot of stress in my life and anxiety, and I would say some depression in high school. So I had gone to a therapist, and then literally one day I woke up and I was like, I don't need this anymore. And what's funny about this is that I'm very open about this, because I don't think there's anyone that should be above thinking that they can or should talk to someone. And one of my patients today, we were having this discussion, and she said, well, sometimes people think I am the help. I shouldn't need help because I am the help. And I don't find that true at all. I think that we all need to feel stable and secure. And sometimes that is talking to someone who is not a relative, is not a friend, is not someone who's just going to tell you what you want to hear, right? So way back when I did that in high school, I remember someone had made a comment to one of my family members and said, "Is Sarah still crazy?" And I said,
Well, that's helpful.
yeah.
That's
And I said,
useful.
I
Yeah.
don't even know what that means, because I didn't have a panic attack at the time. I wasn't doing anything erratic. It's not like I was drinking or doing drugs. I mean, there was nothing like that. But apparently they had heard that I was talking to a therapist. And at that time, it was really a counselor, right?
Mm.
So then I woke up one day then in high school and I was like, okay, I don't need this anymore. And totally fine. So then at another point, I thought I needed someone, and I spoke to someone, and it was clear to me that that was not helping. And I was like, okay. So I didn't swear therapy off by any means. So let's see, the panic attack was in January. My best friend one day said to me, I remember I was sitting in my closet. My husband had already gone to work. It was early in the morning, like 6:30 in the morning. And I was sitting like on this tote of clothes, and I'm just telling her whatever. And she just very nicely said, I think you need some help. And I think you just need to talk to someone um, about this. And I immediately thought, okay, but I didn't know who. So then I asked a friend of mine who lives in my area, and I said, I need to talk to someone. Do you have any recommendations? And she gave me a recommendation, she gave me one recommendation, and I called him. And you have to interview to be one of his patients. So you go in and you take a test and you do this initial interview. And then after the test, he decides if he's going to take you or not. And so he did. He took me, and it was 10 weeks of therapy. It was 3 times a week. And it was unique in the fact of it's not like, I've been to all these therapists and I have all this experience, but I had been to two other ones, and they would ask me, how do you feel? How does that make you feel? So then this guy, he flat out said, I don't care how you feel. I want you to tell me what you think. Like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And we kind of took the emotion out of everything. And he really just got down to the nitty gritty and convinced me, which I think that anyone can be convinced at how great we are to begin with. Like, we are born to be great. We are born to be really good people. And sometimes good people screw up, and sometimes we need to get back on track, but that doesn't mean we're not a good person, right? Maybe sometimes we have bad behavior or bad circumstances, but we are innately good. And that's, I don't know, just it changed my life. And it's been hard. It's been hard for some people around me because they don't understand how I think now, right? Because it's completely different from how I ever used to think. But my husband understands the way that I think. And I think that's probably the most important thing, because, we're a team. And I have said it plenty of times. I don't know. I mean, I'm not assuming that we'd be divorced, but I don't think our marriage would be as good if were to be the same person that I was 10 years ago, because I was very emotional. I was so indecisive. I was just kind of like a roller coaster. And I was never bad. I was never mean. It's just that, when you have a partner who can cry at the drop of a hat, and it's like, what is wrong? And he gracefully dealt with it. But I like who I am now. I do. I like who I am
Mm.
as a person. I like who I am as a parent, as a spouse, as a friend. And I'm okay with people not liking who I am, because, that's really not what matters anymore.
So a gun to your head, do you think there was some subtle manipulation in what this therapist was saying to you, or was he just able to cut the bullshit, scrape away all the other crap and all the other stuff that's influencing, and just show you who you actually are straight away? What do you think his technique was?
I think he cut the bullshit.
Yeah.
He gave me no fluff ever. And I never left feeling badgered or put down by him. And I don't know if I like the word empowered, encouraged. I felt encouraged. Like, I could live life on my terms. I could set respectful boundaries. I could respect people while demanding respect in a kind way. Um, yeah, that's a I've never thought about it that way, but I do not think it was any type of manipulation. I think it was just like, let's cut through. Oh, you're sad. Okay, well, why are you sad? And then we would delve into why I was sad, and then it was like, okay, but you didn't set the boundary or the expectation to begin with, so you kind of set yourself up to be that way, right? And
Mm.
I and looking at it, I would set myself up for all the way all the ways that I was feeling. So definitely is good to set boundaries, I think, in all aspects of your life. And one of the things, when you and I have talked a little before the podcast, just to, hey, what to expect. One thing that used to keep me up at night is worrying about my patients. So if someone has this low back pain and I've seen them for 2 weeks with it and it's not getting better, and so I'm laying in bed thinking, what could we do? And who should I refer to, and going on and on. And he did make me realize that I was caring too much about other people, and I needed to let other people know, like, I care for you. This is what I expect of you, but you also need to put in the effort you need to put. So I think sometimes in my life, I had maybe put too much effort into relationships that weren't putting effort back to me.
Mm.
And so if you have all these patients and you're thinking about all these patients and worrying about all them, but they're not icing or stretching or having their annual physical, it's difficult because I can't be the end all be all for these people. And for a while, I think that's what I was trying to be. And I have to make sure that people know that they are responsible for themselves. I am responsible for what I do and think and feel, and other people are as well.
I like that. One of the other positives that came from this whole situation was the fast lane with Sarah Jayne. Talk to me about that. Why the title, first of all, and what you hope to give back with putting this podcast out there for people.
So the funny thing is I don't think I'd ever listened to a podcast in my life. And I thought, I want to do a podcast because I really, really enjoy talking to people. And I like asking, as I'm sitting here on your podcast talking about myself, people like to talk about themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
people like to, I think people like to know that someone cares, right? So I like to talk to people. I like to ask questions. And so I wanted to do a podcast because I wanted to interview people and talk to people. So I was connected with this lady who did podcasts. And so she said, you need to come up with a name. Okay. So I was thinking and thinking and thinking, and nothing was coming up because I didn't even know what, like there's a podcast for everything. Like there's one on how to declutter, and they have hundreds of episodes on how to declutter your home. Like there's literally a podcast for everything. So I'm thinking, I don't really know if there's any one thing I'm going to specialize in, right? So as I'm talking to her, and it came to me, and I said, Fast Lane with Sarah Jayne. And she's like, oh. And she's like, and why? And I said, well, because in my life, it's like I'm in the fast lane all the time, right? We gotta get to school, we gotta get to practice, we gotta get to work, we have all of these things we need to do. So it's constantly, we're cruising in the fast lane. And then I wrote the book about the car, and it's funny how it all kind of intertwined together. So I think that we're all on a highway in life, and right now I'm in the fast lane because there's so many things going on. So, and fast lane with Sarah Jayne obviously probably sounds better than slow lane with Sarah Jayne because it sounds like a real snooze fest. But, and the funny thing, I really, really enjoy doing the podcast. And one of my patients who became a friend, she said, I really enjoy your podcast, but you are always marketing other people. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, you have different doctors on and therapists on and whatever, and you are always encouraging people to seek other people for help. And I said, well, that's a good point. And then at one time, I even had a mystery author on because I was going through this phase where I was reading and living and breathing all these this true life crime. also had to take a step back from that, which is a different story. But um, I was really just interviewing people that I wanted to and people that I wanted to learn from. And yeah, it was just, it was fun. And then I kind of took a hiatus because I opened a new office and things got busy. But um, I do enjoy talking to people on this level because I think that someone can always learn something from someone else. And you just never know. Like, look at you and I. We never would have randomly ran into each other. We're on two different continents.
It's great, isn't it? I do like the selfish side of it because I talk to the people that I want to talk to, and I think I can have an instant, not even I can have an interesting conversation with them. I can learn something, and it's completely selfish. I'm like, oh, this person's cool. They do
Yes.
something. They're talking about something quirky and different, and equally, I don't know anything about usually most of the things or most of the people that I'm talking to. I've got no idea what they do, how they do it, or anything. So I've
Right.
got to do a load of research beforehand to find out what the hell a chiropractor even does or whatever it is. And I just find that bit fascinating as well, and being able to get up to a level that we can actually have a proper conversation about it, and then, like you say, people can learn from it. So your whole thing that you've got, which I really like, is live better, be better, do better. Again, was this the same mentor that helped you shape this as a sort of subtitle to your whole thing?
Yeah. And I don't, obviously, I wouldn't have done any of this had it not been to go to therapy. But I had a lady in one time, and she had some different health stuff going on, and she literally said, "Well, I guess this is the best it's going to get, isn't it?" And I said, "Absolutely not. And if this is the best you think it's going to be, then we need to find out different ways that, for you." And I think it's important for people to know that there's not one path to be healthy or be better or do better or to live better. Like, there's so many different ways. And you can't do better if you don't know better. So, people will beat themselves up. They'll come in there like, "Well, I didn't know. I've been eating this and I've been doing that." It's like, okay, well, if someone had told you it was good for you and you were doing it and you didn't know any better, well, you can't beat yourself up. Like, if you knew that you weren't supposed to be drinking Diet Coke, like a 2-liter bottle of Diet Coke every day for the past 10 years, if you knew that, like, yeah, I mean, you can be mad, but a lot of times people just don't know. And
Mm.
once you learn, then you can move on. And what I think I'm good at with people is that, I'm a little fraction of their life. And I think it's very important to have a team of people who help you with your health. And, medical doctors, chiropractors, if it's a therapist, massage therapist, whatever it may be, one person can't do all the things for you.
One of the episodes that I've just wrapped up with is with a fantastic transpersonal coach called Bryony Kroll, and a lot of the time we were talking about being conscious and unconscious about our lives and our waking and what we're doing and thinking and etc. Do you think that is important? You almost mentioned it just then that people are going around unconsciously just living their lives. Do you think it is a tipping point in people's lives where they become conscious and they actually actively want to make better decisions, know more, improve their lives, and they're not just on a roller coaster that's completely out of their own control? They're actually behind the steering wheel and they can make decisions and be proactive within their own lives.
I think that is huge. And if people think about what they do on a daily basis, they get up, they get in their car, they drive to work, you go on the same path. How many times have you been driving to work, you get to work, and then you're thinking, "Oh, I don't even remember driving by blah blah blah, and I was going to look at that." It's like we are so too it's we just know what we're doing. Like, you don't even have to think about what you're doing. I think that's why it's so difficult for people to change, because you truly do have to start thinking about things that you haven't been thinking about. And when it comes to weight loss and getting people healthy, that's one thing I really like about how we approach that in our office, because we help people make small changes. And a lot of times when people think, "I use weight loss because this is just such a common thing," and especially at the beginning of the year, everyone wants to lose weight. And then we're 2 weeks in and now we've quit because eating salads or starving isn't working, right? And so
Mm.
showing people that if you make small changes over time, that it's going to help. So even in your day. And I do this now because I get into this routine. I will take a different route to go to school, and my kids know because I'll say, "Well, we drive the same way every time, and we drop off at the same door." And sometimes I need to spice it up a little bit because we're on autopilot. We are on
Mm.
autopilot, and then people are unhappy about something that's going on in their life, but we do the same thing day after day after day, and it's not going to change. And then we're upset that it's not going to change. So it's uncomfortable to change, but it is usually helpful.
And as you brought it up briefly earlier, what part has meditation played in this journey? Was there any meditation in your life pre 2015, or was it something that you started trying afterwards, or is it just something you tried and you mentioned, but it's not actually a big deal to you?
Um, I don't even think it was after 2015. I would say probably more the last 5 years. But when I first started doing it, I about could have pulled my hair out because I couldn't sit there. How, if people are not used to the quiet, it almost makes you feel crazy because it's so quiet. And so I tried it a few times and I'm like, oh, this is not working. And so I kept trying it, kept trying it. What I have found is thunderstorm noise is what's good for me. So when I sit in my sauna, I listen to thunderstorm music, or it's not music, right? It's just a noise. I asked for
Mm.
a sound machine for Christmas so I could ditch my phone and just have like thunder next to me. So thunder, rain, waves, whatever. But that is what helps me disconnect the most. And I have encouraged people because everyone, not everyone, 9.9 out of 10 people will say they don't have time to meditate or they don't need to. And I will tell them, take 5 minutes, find something that you really like, maybe that doesn't have words. If you're driving to work, if you are whatever. And then people say, well, if I'm driving to work, I'm doing something. I would rather you take 5 minutes on your drive to work and listen to something relaxing than not do it at all during the day. And actually, I got to a point where I actually crave listening to that. But it's weird how, especially, and I have 3 boys, we have no quiet in our house ever. It is loud. And so even if I'm at work and it's quiet and let's say my receptionist, she's not very far from me, our offices are pretty close, and all of a sudden I'll say it is creepy quiet in here, and I will have to put something on so I have something in the background. But I think if a person can just disconnect and not think for a little while, it's huge. But
Mm.
even just taking 5 minutes seems to be difficult. I mean, that took me a long time to answer that question for you, but I just like, it's doable. You just have to, you really do have to try.
Mm. And talk to me a little bit about non-toxic living. What does that mean to you? Because I've not really come across that with anyone that I've spoken to before, but it seems like a big thing for you.
It is a big thing. And it's, the more you know, and sometimes it's easier to not know because once you know, then it is kind of stressful because you can see the toxins everywhere. So, as far as like a lotion, in the United States, our regulations are very poor when it comes to what people can put in a product. So if you can buy a hand and body lotion and you will see on it, it will say fragrance. Well, fragrance is not like wheat flour, right? Fragrance can be anything. Fragrance is going to have a whole list of it, of ingredients on its own that they don't have to disclose. Excuse me. And a lot of times it's like cancer causing chemicals. And so you think about all these lotions, perfumes, shampoos, toothpaste, makeup, um, deodorant, all this stuff that people are using every single day. And a lot of times people will say, well, a little isn't a big deal. Agree. Like, I think everything needs to be done in moderation because I can be a little over the top sometimes when it comes to this stuff. But if you're using deodorant every single day that has aluminum in it, you're going to eventually, you're going to accumulate that over time. So it's very important to me, especially having kids, to not put all this junk on them day after day after day. And here, and people will get so overwhelmed when they start doing research on this, and that's when I say you got to break it down. You got to think, what is something that I use every day that I can change, and start with what you clean your countertops with, because there's a lot of people who will use wipes that contain tons of chemicals, and then if you're a parent, you have had your child lick your counter at some point because it's a kid, and then in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they're licking up all these chemicals. Well, if you do that day after day after day, it's going to accumulate. So toxins are, I mean, people have a lot of chronic illness and sickness, and it can be, it can, all the toxins can be contributing to some of this chronic illness, and it's wild.
So what do you tell people to do? What small steps could people take to avoid some of these toxins? Which are the easiest ones, or maybe even the most dangerous ones that you can easily avoid from the research that you've done?
I like to start with deodorant. And the reason I like to start with deodorant is that when a woman goes to have a mammogram, they ask you to not wear deodorant because of the heavy metals, and it might skew the results. So, okay, so you're telling me that today I can't wear deodorant because it might be bad for this test. So then it's obviously probably bad for me every other day. So I have found a good deodorant, and there are times, like, I get it. Like right now it's negative 23 where I live, and I don't even know what the wind chill is, but I'll tell you, it is the coldest day of the year, and people are probably not thinking about deodorant. It's getting hot. When it gets hot, I understand when people are like, well, then the natural deodorant doesn't work that well for me on hot days. Okay, well, maybe you need to reapply it, or maybe during the hot days you have to use the toxic deodorant. But if 200 days out of 300 days you're using non-toxic deodorant, or it's a lot better than using it all year round. So that's where I like to start with people, or even with their body wash, thinking about body wash that people use every day. And I think back when I was in high school, Bath and Body Works was this huge thing, and everything smelled so good. Well, now you go and look at all the fragrance, and it's wild. So we've lived this way for quite a while, a very long time. Detergent, there's another thing. Detergent can have a ton of chemicals in it. And then if you think about, you wash it in the chemical, and then if it's on your sheets, you're sleeping in the sheets, or if it's on your underwear or your clothes, you're wearing it all day long. That's just a lot of stuff. But this is how we've lived for a long time. And then, I don't know, 2 months ago, my husband comes home and he's all wound up about fragrance. And I'm like, what? Like, I've literally been talking about fragrance forever. And he's like, fragrance is horrible. I'm like, do you, like, I literally call it another F word. Fragrance is like another F word because there's so much bad stuff in it. So it's fine. He had to hear it on a podcast from someone else that fragrance was bad. He learned it. That's all that matters. But look at what again, it depends where you're at, but I know in the United States, let's say you go to a big box chain and you just grab a lotion, a deodorant, a shampoo, you look on the back of it, you'll be hard pressed to not find a cancer causing chemical in that product.
That's crazy. I need to do more research, clearly.
Mm-hmm. It's hidden.
Now,
Hides in there.
now, Sarah Jayne, I want to be respectful of your time, so I'll jump into the quickfire round now, if that's fine with you.
Yep.
And then we can sign it off and you can get on with your lunch. What book would you give someone if they wanted to live a good life?
There's so many books that I think have helped shape who I am. I cannot think of one book, period, that I would want. And I'm even sitting here looking like at all these books that I have, and I'm like, oh my gosh, if we could take a chapter out of here and a chapter over there. The one I'm reading currently is a John Maxwell book, Failing Forward. So I think that is a book. I'm not going to say that book has defined me, but I think that it's important for people to know that if you're doing something, and when they say, if you at first you don't succeed, try again. Yeah, it sounds kind of corny, but it's true. I mean, you either keep trying or you are a victim. So there is not one specific book that I would recommend, but right now I'm into Failing Forward. I like that one.
Failing Forward, perfect. What was the biggest light bulb moment in your life where you found out something really important about yourself?
That would have been when, and again, I suppose 2015 when I was in the 10-week therapy session, but I realized that I I mean, I guess I probably already covered this already, but that if I get up in the morning and I'm doing the best I can and I'm setting my boundaries and I am a good person, um, that's it's good enough for me.
Nice. Of all the skills that you've developed, which one do you consider to be the most important?
You'd think that these questions wouldn't be so tough. I think that parenting is a skill, and it's not something I've mastered nor ever will master, but it's the journey of a lifetime, and I'm glad I'm on that ride.
Good answer. Good answer. What keeps you up at night? Apart from fragrance that's being added to things. What else keeps you up at night?
Um, you know, I've been sleeping pretty well at night since being able to set some boundaries. And I am just willing to accept that there's certain things that I can't change, and there's certain things that I can. And I can work on myself, but I can't control other people. So I don't let much keep me awake at night any longer.
Good stuff. If somebody wanted to take one step towards living a good life, what would you tell that person to do next?
I think it's important to realize for a person what they actually want, because sometimes we're on autopilot. And then when we just take a step back and relax and actually see what we really want, because there's plenty of people that I speak to and they're miserable. They don't enjoy maybe their job, they don't enjoy, just even small aspects of their life that they can change. So I think a person should just sit down and make a list of what is important to them and then act on that. And how, like, health, obviously that's my arena, right? So if someone isn't happy with their health, then there are small changes that you can make. Even if you need to lose 5, 10, 15, 50, or 100 pounds, there are small things that you can do to help reach your goal. So sit down and make a list of what's important to you and figure that out first.
Nice. And finally, who should we talk to next if we want to learn how to live a good life?
Who should you talk to next?
Yeah, a mentor in your life. It can be another book that you've read that we should go and look at. But who's been the most influential person to you?
Do most people have one person who is their biggest influence?
No, it's such a hard question to answer. Sometimes people have just gone through therapy, or sometimes they've even got a friend who's just really qualified, and they think, oh, there will be a good podcast guest to have on next. But yeah, no, people usually can't. People usually struggle over this one.
Because, I've had some influential people, but at different stages of life, right? Because, it depends on where we are. A good person to have as a guest, I probably would say my therapist. And I did do a podcast with him, and he kind of breaks down like how important a person is and why you should love yourself first before putting anyone else above that. So I'd probably say
Cool.
Mike, my therapist, because I think a lot of people could learn from him.
Perfect. Sarah Jayne, thank you so much for your time today. Just before we jump off, if people wanted to listen to your podcast or people wanted to find you online, where's the best place to find you?
So Fastlane with Sarah Jayne is my podcast. I can be found on any platform. And otherwise, I'm on Instagram or Facebook, Klein Chiropractic and Wellness.
Amazing. I'll put all those in the show notes. Sarah Jayne, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and have a great day.
Thank you. You too.